Governance hasn't even kicked off here on Cardano. However, there's been no shortage of different topics, discussions, and potential debates as to what expectations should be for members sitting and representing Cardano through the Constitutional Committee. As a part of today's video, we're taking a look at what some may consider to be a controversial post made by a member who was just added to the ICC, or the Interim Constitutional Committee. And I also want to share some information that was shared by Charles Hoskinson on this topic specifically. That said, let's jump right on in. What's up, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. My name's Fareed. As a part of today's video, we're going to dive into a recent conversation that has just sparked a pretty big debate here in the Cardano community. Now, this was sparked, at least initially started, by Rick McCracken. I've reached out to him just to give him a heads up that I will be sharing some of his content and tweets here just to lay down the foundation and to provide a little bit of context. But I want to give you guys my personal opinion, and I'd love to hear yours about this ongoing debate. Now, just for a little bit of background here, we've had the Interim Constitutional Committee established here in Cardano. Their job is to basically make sure that all of the proposed governance actions for Cardano abide by the existing constitution. I'm going to dive into the actual constitution in a separate video now that we've at least got portions of it available to the public. But that aside, we saw a tweet from Rick McCracken earlier today. For those of you who aren't aware, Rick's been a huge contributor here in Cardano, I believe in the ecosystem, starting as early as 2017, basically when Cardano was first launched. Now, he's also a stake pool operator. He runs, I believe, multiple digi pools. He's also a member of the ICC through the Atlantic Council. So there's 7 seats available for the ICC. One goes to IOG, one goes to Intersect, one goes to the Cardano Foundation and Emergo, and then there's 3 additional seats for the Cardano community. Now, if you missed the actual vote that took place to induct 3 community members or 3 community seats, I want to quickly highlight this portion here. So we've got different candidates that were voted in. Again, this was done about 2 weeks ago, but coming in at number 1 with the most votes is the Cardano Atlantic Council, followed by Cardano Japan, and then the Eastern Cardano Council. So what you'll notice here is that these are groups of people that take up a single seat. So again, we've got the mention of Rick McCracken right there, coming in as one of the final members of the Cardano Atlantic Council. Now, why am I even bringing all of this up? Well, just to add a little bit of context here again, before we really dive into the conversation, we've seen Rick be extremely vocal when it comes to Cardano and just his support and enthusiasm, right, for the ecosystem and for all the builders within it. So a lot of people were taken by surprise when they saw this particular tweet released by Rick's account. So he states here, for Polygon users, the upgrade from Matic to Pol has officially been announced, or at least the date for that update has officially been announced, beginning on September 4th. Now, again, looking from the outside in here, I personally see nothing wrong with tweeting about an important update like this for anybody who might hold the Polygon or the Matic token. Now, again, Rick has a reputation for being a huge proponent and a huge supporter of Cardano. And with his recent onboarding as a member of the ICC through the Cardano Atlantic Council, a lot of people immediately asked, why is Rick officially shilling Polygon or a separate blockchain outside of Cardano? To add a little bit more to the fire here, jumping on Rick's official account, we do have the fact that he has mentioned Polygon in his official bio. So we've got the mention of Cardano, Ergo, and Polygon. Now, to Rick's benefit here, this is not the first time that he's talked about Polygon. He's talked about it multiple times. It's also not the first time that he's talked about other chains, period. He's been a huge proponent of the Ergo blockchain, very similar to Cardano. And even just when the Ergo bridge or the Rosen bridge was officially launching, he was showing tweets or putting out more tweets and content about that. Now, this brings me to sort of the debate and the conversation, which is, should ICC members have to or be made to only discuss Cardano? Now, a lot of people in the ecosystem have basically gone through Rick's most recent tweet about Polygon and sort of called him out about it. Is it warranted? I personally don't think so. Again, given how much he's contributed, how much he's talked about Cardano, it's very difficult to expect them to only talk about a single blockchain forever. Now, yes, it is interesting that he is a part of the ICC, but what this basically opens up for me is a greater conversation around what are the expectations for involvements in other blockchain ecosystems for current standing ICC members. You can definitely bet that there's going to be a vested interest or a potential vested interest in other ecosystems being able to influence what's going on in Cardano. And one of the ways that they could potentially do that is through, right, the use of somebody who's on the ICC, or even by influencing somebody who's a DREP or stake pool operator. So there's plenty of ways to go about influencing and doing all that kind of stuff. But I want to take a step back here and again, just quickly address a couple of things when it comes to Rick himself. Now, Rick has made it very clear and very transparent that he has not been paid by anybody from the Polygon Foundation or Polygon Labs or whatever you want to call it to make or to release any of these tweets. Now, again, people call this shilling, but I just consider this sharing helpful information. Shilling, in my personal eyes, is where you're promoting a token, where you're telling people to go buy something, or you're constantly, right, repeating yourself or repeating a particular narrative, where you're sort of expecting people to go and invest or support whatever that you're talking about. In this instance, something as general as the fact that the Polygon token or the Matic token is going to be rebranded, that's general information. He's not necessarily telling anybody to go buy Polygon, but he has been transparent enough to let us know that he does hold other tokens, which of course I would expect a lot of other people to hold other tokens aside from ADA. Again, what does this mean though for the ICC? So for those of you who aren't aware, the ICC right now is a fully volunteered position with no remuneration or no payments currently involved. So I've gone ahead through the documentation here. And basically here, I want to highlight where it states the council is currently an unpaid body, but it is anticipated remuneration will be a discussion point for the council in collaboration with the Intersect professional staff. So all of the time that Rick and everybody else from the Cardano Atlantic Council and even the other two seats are currently doing is for completely free and is of no charge right now. Now, again, if the ICC or just the traditional Cardano Constitutional Committee is being paid, what should be the expectations in the Cardano community for how they interact with other ecosystems? Does this automatically disallow them to post any content about other ecosystems, other creators, other protocols? Does this also prevent them from just sharing their opinion or even collaborating with other ecosystems? Now, one area that I do think definitely becomes a point of interest or a potential conflict of interest is if there's payments going on for the ICC or the Cardano Constitutional Committee, and then there's maybe also payments involved from that person who's a part of the ICC or the regular CC in a separate ecosystem. So again, for an example, let's say Bob is getting paid to be on the Cardano Constitutional Committee, and Bob is also being paid to be on the, for example, Ethereum Constitutional Committee. That clearly poses a huge conflict of interest. But in this case right now with Rick personally, or just generally speaking, because again, this could apply to anybody aside from Rick who's just in Cardano right now, they're not being paid. They're putting up their hard-earned time to be able to push Cardano forward. And so right now, I don't think that there should be any liability or any expectation that anybody on the ICC should not be able to talk about whatever else that they want to talk about. I faced very similar scrutiny as a creator where 99% of my content is Cardano based. And anytime that I mention another blockchain, I typically get people that ask me, why am I talking about other ecosystems, etc.? Because I've almost become known as a Cardano specific creator. So I think that Rick has sort of almost fallen into a very similar scenario or situation where he's been known, right, as a Cardano community enthusiast. And now that he's posted one tweet about a separate blockchain, that has all now come into question. Again, keep in mind that there's been no questions of ethics or anything else like that when Rick posted tweets about Ergo and other ecosystems a while back. But I think, again, the fact that he's not part of the ICC has opened up this discussion topic for the general Cardano community. So I would love to hear, what your thoughts are about this particular topic. Should ICC members, again, putting Rick aside, just generally speaking, be able to talk about other ecosystems? how involved should they be able to be with other ecosystems while also being representatives of the ICC within Cardano? Following that, how should payments be handled? If they're being paid to be a member of the ICC, can they legally or should they ethically accept payments from other ecosystems as well? Again, a lot of blurred lines here. And this is the point of governance, for us to come together, figure out how much they should be paid, number one. But then number two, anything that they should not be able to do, or maybe highlight everything that they should be able to do as members of the ICC. Now, let's quickly maybe just end off here by talking about and just weighing some of the pros and cons. One of the pros being, right, when you're able to talk about other ecosystems freely without judging, because again, everybody knows that, yes, Cardano is great, but it'd be silly to expect anybody who's on the ICC who believes in just blockchain technology in general not to hold something such as Bitcoin or even something such as Ethereum. Yes, Cardano may not necessarily do everything well. We're still a work in progress, but I think it's very, very outlandish to think that anybody who's a part of the ICC, number one, doesn't earn or hold any other tokens, but the number two, that they're just not keeping up with the entire blockchain space, right? Inevitably, they should, right? Because I think, again, just understanding the broader landscape makes them a better contributor specifically to Cardano. Therefore, being able to share their ideas, I think is sort of like a natural progression of that, right? So if they're invested in other assets, if they're keeping up with just the broader ecosystem, which is just blockchain and crypto, I think that they should obviously be able to share their ideas. Now, one other thing to keep in mind here is that this was posted on Rick's personal account. So Rick, by no means, right, owes anybody anything. If he wants to post about NASCAR, if he wants to post about football, he's got the right to do so. And so do I, and so do you. So that's another piece of the puzzle there. Again, this wasn't an official bit of information that's come out from the Cardano Atlantic Council Twitter or from them just in a professional way, right? So that's a whole nother conversation. How much restrictions do we put on ICC members when it comes to just publicly highlighting other ecosystems? So maybe just stepping back a little bit, right? So touching on increased collaboration, when we're able to understand other ecosystems, integrate, or at least be up to date about what's going on with other ecosystems, we can better, number one, understand issues that they might be having, but then number two, better be able to build a connection or bridge to those ecosystems for when the time comes. Next, we've got maybe just the expansion, right, of personal networks. So I definitely do think that there are some benefits to, highlighting or at least tagging or talking about other ecosystems while still representing the ICC. But let's also talk about some of the cons. One of those being potential conflicts of interest. Again, if there's an outsider or an outside entity or force or blockchain, whatever you want to call it, that wants to basically take Cardano down a dark road, they could potentially try to do so by manipulating members of the ICC in order to vote for things that may not necessarily be in Cardano's best interest. Again, though, let me back up and also explain that one of the actions that we have as the Cardano community is the ability to say that we have no confidence in the existing members of the Cardano Constitutional Committee. That said, what basically would happen then is that we'd be in a stalemate or a lock stage where the community has to go back and vote to increase or to add or remove members from the CC. And then once we get back to a point of confidence or motion of confidence, we can then begin to allow for that new committee to actually approve or deny any potential actions in the pipeline. So us as the Cardano community, we definitely have a say in whether or not the CC has the power and whether or not we believe in the fact that they're making the right decision. But I can definitely see conflicts of interest, especially when there's payments involved, being a discussion point for ICC members. Next, we've just got security risks, again, very similar to conflicts of interest, where we may have potential bad actors trying to penetrate the Cardano community, for lack of better terms, through members which are either directly associated with the ICC, DREPs, SPOs, etc. And then last but not least, I would just say that there could be impacts to community trust. Again, myself as a Cardano creator, if I were to basically stop in my tracks right now creating Cardano content and I shift to a particular ecosystem that I've never talked about before, I could potentially lose trust in that process because, again, I'm now shifting away from what my traditional audience has known me for. But to what extent do I limit my own growth, right? In terms of limiting myself to only focusing on one ecosystem. Again, I think that's where a lot of this conversation becomes very nuanced and sticky, is the fact that we can't expect for somebody, again, putting myself or Rick in there, to only talk about one thing for the entirety of their life. That's just not how life works. As humans, as adults, everything changes, right? We talk about going from a young man to being an adult, a young woman to being an adult, whatever the case is. You talk about jobs, friends, everything about life in general changes. So I think that we have to understand that as we grow in this blockchain and crypto space, people are going to have different interests. Hopefully, Cardano remains their main interest, but it's just been interesting to see and just read a little bit of some of the responses here, and just really understanding what the Cardano community thinks of posts like these. So let me know what you guys think down below. I don't want to drag this out any further than it's already gone, but I just want to take a minute to highlight some of the recent drama that's been going on here in the ecosystem and really use this as an opportunity, right, to discuss some of the harder conversations or harder topics that I personally believe we're going to see more of in the future as the Cardano Constitution and the interim constitution really begin to take effect. So that'll do it here for today's video. Again, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are down below. Should ICC members have to sign any paperwork or basically announce that they're not going to be talking about any other ecosystems, or that they basically pledge allegiance to Cardano and Cardano only? Or should they just be able to share their opinions and thoughts like everybody else can? That said, again, leave your comments down below. I'd be happy to hear them. I'll try to respond to as many of those as possible. If you found any portion of today's video to be helpful or insightful or just thought generating, please make sure to smash that thumbs up. It's really one of the easiest and best ways to support me here as a creator on the YouTube channel. If you want more content like this, breaking down everything going on in Cardano, consider subscribing to Dapp Central. And last but not least, if you have any questions for me or just want to share your opinion down below, then make sure to use that comment box. That said, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.